Rain had stopped, but the street still smelled of rust and smoke. Neon lights flickered weakly above broken signs, painting the dirty walls in red and blue. Eli walked alone, his coat soaked, his boots splashing through puddles. It was late and most people had gone home. This part of the city was forgotten, filled with shadows, silence, and the faint hum of dying machines. He was heading back from another long shift at the repair docks, tired and cold. But as he passed through a narrow alley, he heard something, a small sound like metal cans shifting. He paused. The sound came again, this time softer, mixed with a faint sniffle. Eli turned his head slowly. Between two broken trash bins, something moved. At first he thought it was a cat or one of the junk scavengers, but when the figure lifted its head, he saw a pair of glowing blue eyes. A small alien girl, no older than 7, crouched beside a pile of garbage. Her skin was light blue, her hair tangled, her hands shaking as she searched through scraps of metal and plastic. She didn't notice him at first. She was focused, carefully picking through the trash, holding up broken pieces and dropping them again. Eli frowned. He stepped closer. "Hey," he said softly, trying not to startle her. "What are you doing out here?" The girl froze. Her head lifted fast, her big blue eyes wide. For a second, she looked ready to run. Then, seeing he wasn't holding a weapon, she stayed still. Her voice was small, almost a whisper. "I'm searching the trash for a birthday gift for my mom, human." Eli blinked. The words hit him like a quiet punch. He looked around. There was nothing here but broken bottles, old circuits, and pieces of glass. "A birthday gift?" he asked, stepping a little closer. "In the trash?" She nodded, her eyes lowering again. "I want to find something pretty. Something that makes her smile. She hasn't smiled in a long time." The rain dripped from the edge of the roof, tapping against a metal pipe. Eli's chest felt heavy. He crouched beside her. "Where's your mom now?" The girl pointed toward the end of the alley. "She's sleeping. She's sick." Her voice shook as she said it. She held a broken glass flower in her hand. Cracked, dirty, but glowing faintly under the neon light. She brushed the dirt away and smiled weakly. "Maybe she'll like this one," she said. "It's still shining a little." Eli watched her small fingers tremble as she held the broken flower like it was something precious. She was barefoot, her clothes torn and too thin for the cold. Her knees were scraped and her lips were pale. "Hey," he said gently. "How long have you been out here?" She shrugged. "A few days, maybe. Since the soldiers came. They took all the food. We had to hide." He looked at the broken buildings around them. The alien district had been abandoned after the last raid. Most humans avoided this place. The government called it unsafe territory. Eli wasn't even supposed to be here. But something in his heart told him not to walk away. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small light cube, something he used for repairs. It glowed warm yellow. The girl's eyes widened as she stared at it. "Here," he said, handing it to her. "It's not much, but it's clean and bright. Maybe your mom would like this too." She hesitated, then took it carefully with both hands. Her eyes shimmered with tears. "Thank you," she whispered. "You're kind. Not many humans come here anymore." Eli smiled faintly. "Well, I'm not like most humans," the girl giggled softly. The first happy sound he'd heard in this alley. But the moment didn't last. Somewhere in the distance, a loud metallic roar echoed. The ground trembled slightly. "Patrol drones," Eli looked up, his face tense. "We need to get you and your mom somewhere safe." The girl's eyes widened in fear. "No, if they see you helping us, they'll take you too." He crouched lower, meeting her gaze. "I don't care." She stared at him, confused. No one had ever said that to her before. "Show me where she is," Eli said firmly. "I'll help." For a moment, the girl said nothing. Then she slowly nodded. She held the broken glass flower close to her chest and stood up. "Okay, but you have to be quiet. The soldiers don't like humans helping aliens." Eli followed her through the maze of shadows, stepping over trash and twisted pipes. The deeper they went, the darker it became. The faint hum of city lights faded until only their breathing could be heard. At the end of the alley, the girl stopped in front of a metal sheet leaning against a wall. She pushed it aside, revealing a narrow passage leading underground. The air inside smelled damp and cold. Eli took a deep breath and followed. The girl's small figure moved ahead, her light cube glowing softly, guiding the way. As they descended, he couldn't stop thinking about her words. Searching trash for a birthday gift. He had seen hunger, war, and loss before. But something about this, a little alien girl fighting to make her sick mother smile, broke through his tired heart. When they reached the bottom of the passage, a faint cough echoed ahead. The girl whispered, "That's my mom." Eli looked around. Small lights flickered weakly on the walls. The place was quiet, hidden from the world above. He realized then that this night was not going to be like any other. It started with a sound in the trash, but it was about to change both of their lives forever. The tunnel was cold and silent except for the sound of dripping water. The small light cube in the girl's hands gave off a soft yellow glow that danced across the damp walls. Eli followed her carefully, trying not to make a sound. His boots splashed in small puddles as they walked deeper into the hidden passage. The girl stopped in front of a half-open metal door. Inside, a weak cough broke the silence. She turned to him and whispered, "That's my mom. Please be quiet. She doesn't like loud voices." Eli nodded and stepped inside slowly. The room was small and dark. A few broken blankets were spread across the floor. A thin alien woman lay there, her skin pale and cracked like faded glass. She tried to sit up when she saw him, but the effort made her cough harder. "Mom," the girl whispered, running to her side. "Look what I found." She held up the broken glass flower in the glowing cube. The dim light reflected off her mother's face, and for a brief second a soft smile appeared on her lips. "It's beautiful," the woman said weakly. Her voice sounded like dry leaves. "You always find light where others find nothing." Eli stood near the door watching them. The warmth between them made him forget the world above for a moment. The girl placed the flower beside her mother and wrapped her small arms around her. "She hasn't eaten in 2 days," the woman said quietly, her eyes still closed. "The patrols took everything. Even the medicine." Eli knelt down, pulling a small ration bar from his jacket. "Here, it's not much, but it'll help." The woman looked at him, her eyes cautious. "Why are you helping us, human?" He didn't have a clear answer. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was the way the girl had looked at the broken flower like it was the most precious thing in the world. "Because no one else will," he finally said. The woman looked at him for a long moment, then nodded slightly. "Humans don't come here anymore. They say this district is infected, cursed." Eli frowned. "They're wrong. It's just forgotten." The girl smiled faintly, nibbling the ration bar and holding half of it out to her mother. "You should eat too." Her mother took it slowly, her hands shaking. Eli watched in silence. The girl's small act of sharing, even in hunger, felt like something sacred. "Do you have a name?" Eli asked softly. The girl nodded. "Lyra, my mom's name is Sora." "Lyra," he repeated. "That's a nice name." Her face brightened a little. "What's yours?" "Eli," she smiled. "Thank you, Eli." He wasn't sure why those words hit him so deeply. Maybe because no one had thanked him in a long time. Outside, the wind howled faintly through the broken streets. Eli looked around the room and saw a few scraps of metal, empty bottles, and a cracked mirror. The air smelled of damp stone and old oil. "You live down here all the time?" he asked. Sora nodded weakly. "It's safer underground. Up there, soldiers shoot first and ask later. They think we're still part of the war." Eli clenched his fists. He wanted to say something, but words felt useless. He looked at Lyra again. She sat beside her mother, cleaning the glass flower carefully with a piece of cloth. "This was thrown away," she said softly. "But see how it still shines when you clean it." Eli couldn't look away. He felt something shift inside him, a quiet understanding. This girl wasn't just searching for trash. She was searching for hope. He stood up and walked toward the door. "I'll come back tomorrow," he said. "I'll bring food. And medicine if I can find some." Lyra looked up quickly, her eyes wide. "You'll really come back?" "Yes," Eli said simply. "I promise." Sora smiled faintly from her blanket. "Be careful, human. Promises are dangerous things in this world." Eli nodded and stepped out into the tunnel again. The light behind him faded as he climbed toward the surface. The cold air hit his face, but inside something was warm, a small spark, like the light cube still glowing in the hands of the little alien girl. He didn't know it yet, but that promise would change both their lives forever. Morning came slow and gray. Sunlight struggled to reach the lower streets where the air smelled of dust and smoke. Eli woke early, his body sore from work but his mind fixed on the faces he had seen last night. Lyra and her mother. The image of that broken glass flower wouldn't leave his head. He couldn't stop thinking about how gently she had held it as if it was treasure. He packed a small bag with bread, water, and a few energy cells from his workshop. The rules said no one was allowed to cross into the alien zones without permission, but he had already broken worse rules before. He wrapped his coat tighter and headed back through the empty market roads. People glanced at him but didn't ask questions. No one cared much in this city anymore. When he reached the edge of the alien district, he stopped. The warning sign still hung across the walls. Entry forbidden. Quarantine zone. The letters were fading, half burned away by years of neglect. Eli pushed through anyway. The streets beyond were silent, filled with broken windows and rusting doors. Every step echoed in the hollow air. He found the same alley from last night. The trash piles looked untouched. The metal sheet at the end was still there. He pushed it aside and slipped through, following the narrow passage downward. The air grew colder, the sound of his steps swallowed by the walls. When he entered the small shelter, the light cube still glowed softly in the corner. Lyra was sitting beside her mother, brushing her hair gently with a piece of cloth. When she saw Eli, her face lit up with surprise and relief. "You came back," she said, her voice full of wonder. "I told you I would," Eli said, kneeling beside her. "I brought food." She reached out eagerly as he opened the bag. The smell of bread filled the small space, warm and simple but powerful enough to bring tears to her eyes. She handed a piece to her mother, who tried to sit up. "Eat slowly," Eli said. "You need strength." Sora, the mother, looked at him with tired eyes. "You risked a lot coming here," she whispered. "If they catch you, they'll think you're helping the enemy." Eli shrugged. "I don't see enemies, just people trying to survive." For a moment, silence filled the room. The hum of the light cube and the soft crunch of bread were the only sounds. Lyra smiled between bites, her cheeks finally showing color again. She looked up at Eli. "I told you humans aren't all bad. Mom didn't believe me." Sora gave a weak laugh. "Maybe your eyes see clearer than mine, little one." Eli handed her a small energy cell. "This will keep your heater running for a few days. I'll try to bring medicine next time." Sora hesitated before taking it. "Why are you doing this, Eli?" He looked at her, unsure how to explain. "Because she shouldn't have to search trash for a gift. Because no child should live like this." The woman's eyes softened. She lowered her gaze to her daughter and brushed her fingers across her hair. "You have a good heart," she said quietly. "That's rare these days." The light flickered. Outside, thunder rolled faintly in the distance. Lyra crawled closer to Eli and whispered, "Sometimes the sky screams before the soldiers come." Eli's muscles tensed. "When was the last patrol?" 2 nights ago, Sora said. "They don't stay long. There's nothing left to take." He listened carefully, then relaxed a little. Still, his mind raced. He couldn't keep coming here without drawing attention. But leaving them wasn't an option either. Lyra picked up the glass flower again. She held it under the cube light and smiled. "It still shines," she said softly. "Maybe it's happy now that we're not alone." Eli smiled faintly. "Maybe it is." For a while they sat in silence. The cold didn't feel so harsh anymore. The shelter, though small and broken, felt almost warm. When Eli finally stood to leave, Lyra tugged at his coat. "Will you come tomorrow?" "Yes," he said. "And I'll bring something better than bread." She grinned. "Then I'll find something better than a glass flower." Eli laughed quietly, his first laugh in months. He looked at Sora, who nodded slowly with gratitude in her eyes. As he climbed back up toward the surface, he realized he no longer felt alone in this empty city. Somewhere below, in that dark hidden shelter, a little alien girl believed in him, and that belief, fragile as light from a broken cube, was enough to keep him moving forward. The days passed quietly, but the sky above the city had started to change. Heavy gray clouds gathered like bruises, and the air smelled of metal and dust. Eli could feel a storm coming. The kind the city feared most, acid rain that burned everything it touched. He worked faster that morning, repairing ship engines in the docks to earn a few credits. Every time a machine roared to life, he thought of Lyra's smile. He had kept his promise for 3 days now. Each evening he returned to the hidden shelter, bringing food, water, and small pieces of light. Each time Sora looked weaker. Each time Lyra greeted him with the same bright eyes, as if his return meant the world still had hope. But that evening the wind screamed across the buildings. The warning sirens began to echo through the lower sectors. Storm coming. Shelter immediately. The streets cleared fast. People ran to safety, slamming doors, locking windows. Eli stood at the edge of the market, looking toward the alien zone. He knew they had no real shelter there. The underground tunnels leaked. The storm would reach them soon. He tightened his coat and ran. Rain started to fall, thick and dark. It hissed when it hit the metal roofs. The ground steamed where drops landed. Eli covered his face and kept moving, his boots slipping on wet pavement. He could barely see, but he remembered the way by heart now. Left past the broken statue right at the collapsed wall. When he reached the alley, the metal sheet was already shaking in the wind. He pushed it aside and slipped inside. The passage below was dripping, the air damp and heavy. He called softly, "Lyra?" No answer, only the distant sound of water hitting stone. He moved deeper. The light cube still glowed faintly in the shelter. Lyra was sitting by her mother's side, trying to cover her with a torn blanket. The roof above them leaked acid water that hissed as it hit the ground. "Eli," she cried, running to him. "You came back. The roof is breaking. I don't know what to do." He knelt down and pulled another layer of fabric from his bag, spreading it over Sora. "It's all right. I'm here now." Sora opened her eyes slowly. "You shouldn't have come," she whispered. "The storm will kill you too." "I made a promise," Eli said simply. "And I keep my promises." The words made Lyra's eyes shine. She clung to his arm as thunder rolled above them. The light cube flickered, then dimmed. Eli checked his bag and pulled out a small battery pack, connecting it to the cube. The glow returned, soft and warm, pushing the darkness back. Lyra smiled through her tears. "It looks like sunshine again." Eli smiled too, but his heart was heavy. The storm outside roared louder. He could hear the acid rain tearing through the upper streets, burning through metal sheets and wires. The tunnels would not hold for long. "We can't stay here," he said. "We have to move to the deeper tunnels." Sora tried to protest, but her voice failed. She was too weak. Eli picked her up carefully, wrapping her in his coat. Lyra followed, holding the light cube close to her chest. The tunnels were dark and slippery. The smell of burning metal filled the air. Every sound echoed, a drip, a breath, a heartbeat. They walked for what felt like hours, the storm above never stopping. Finally, Eli found an old maintenance room with a sealed door. He kicked it open and stepped inside. The air was dry, safe. He laid Sora down and helped Lyra sit beside her. "This will keep us safe," he said. "Just until the storm ends." Lyra nodded, her voice small. "You didn't leave us. No one else ever came back before." Eli looked at her and said, "Sometimes promises are all we have." Sora reached out, her hand trembling. "You have done more for us than anyone ever did." "I was wrong about humans." Eli sat beside her, silent. The room hummed softly from the power cells still working after all these years. The sound of the storm outside faded to a dull rumble. Lyra leaned against him, her eyes heavy with sleep. "When the storm ends, maybe the world will look clean again," she murmured. Eli didn't answer. He just looked at the faint light from the cube and thought that maybe, for the first time in years, something pure had survived the rain. The storm lasted through the night. When morning came, the air was heavy and the city above was silent. The rain had washed away the dust but left behind a smell of burned metal. Eli sat near the doorway of the maintenance room, watching the dim light seep through cracks in the ceiling. Lyra slept beside her mother, her small hand resting on Sora's arm. The light cube glowed weakly now, its energy almost gone. Sora's breathing was shallow. Each breath sounded thinner than the last. Eli could see the change in her face. Her skin had lost its color and her eyes no longer opened fully. He had seen this before in the war, the quiet fading before the end. He leaned closer. "You need to rest," he said softly. "The storm has passed. I'll get help soon." Sora smiled faintly. "There is no help left, Eli. I know my time is close." Lyra stirred but didn't wake. Eli shook his head. "Don't say that. You'll make it. You just need medicine and food." "I can find both." Her hand moved weakly to his wrist. "Listen to me," she whispered. "There is one thing I need to ask." He nodded slowly, afraid of what she would say next. "When I'm gone, promise me you'll take care of her." "Lyra. She's still small. She believes the world is kind. Don't let that light die in her." Eli's throat tightened. "Sora, promise me," she said again, her voice a fading whisper. He looked at the sleeping girl, her hair tangled, her face calm even in this dark place. He had no family, no home beyond his workshop. But in that moment the answer came without doubt. I promise, Sora smiled. Thank you. You've already given us more than anyone ever did. Her eyes drifted to the light cube still glowing faintly beside them. She used to be afraid of the dark, she said softly. Now she says the light follows her because she believes in people like you. Eli felt something heavy in his chest. He wanted to say something, anything that would make her stay, but the words wouldn't come. Sora's hand slipped from his wrist. Her breath came slower. Then she whispered one last thing, almost too quiet to hear. Tell her I love her, always. Her chest rose once more, then fell still. The silence that followed was deep and endless. Eli sat there, frozen, as the light flickered again. Lyra's eyes opened slowly. She looked at her mother and then at him. For a moment she didn't understand. Then she saw the stillness. Her lips trembled. Mom, she whispered. She touched her mother's hand, then looked up at Eli, her voice breaking. Why isn't she waking up? Eli's heart ached. He reached out, pulling her close. She cried against his chest, small sobs that echoed through the empty room. He didn't tell her right away. He couldn't. He just held her, feeling the weight of the promise he had made only moments before. When her crying finally slowed, she looked up at him, her eyes red and wet. She was going to smile when I gave her the next flower, she said quietly. I didn't get to show her. Eli brushed her hair back gently. She saw it, Lyra, and she smiled because you made her proud. The girl pressed her face into his chest again. She said humans were cruel, but she was wrong. You're not cruel. He held her tighter, staring at the dim cube light. She was right about one thing, though, he whispered. The world can be cruel, but we don't have to be. Hours passed before Lyra finally fell asleep again. Eli sat beside them both, watching the faint light dance on the walls. He wanted to bury Sora to give her peace, but outside the city was still dangerous. He covered her body gently with a blanket and whispered a quiet promise into the air. You gave her life, he said softly. I'll give her the rest. When he looked down at Lyra, she was still holding the broken glass flower close to her heart. It caught a bit of light and shimmered weakly, as if her mother's spirit had stayed behind to keep the promise alive. Days passed since Sora's last breath. The world above didn't stop for loss. The city kept moving with its cold machines and empty promises. Eli and Lyra stayed in the maintenance room until the air grew thin and the food ran out. He knew they couldn't hide forever. The only chance now was to reach the human sector where supplies still existed. Lyra walked beside him as they climbed through the tunnels. She carried the glass flower close to her chest, its edges cleaned and wrapped in cloth. Eli carried his old bag and the memory of a promise that pressed on his heart heavier than any weight. When they reached the surface, the streets were quiet. The storm had ended, but the damage remained. Burned signs, cracked pavement, windows covered in acid marks. The city looked wounded. Stay close to me, he said. Lyra nodded, gripping his hand. Her small fingers were cold, but her steps were steady. They crossed through the empty market, past broken stalls and silent houses, until they reached the security gate dividing the alien district from the human zone. Metal walls stood high, guarded by soldiers in gray armor. Drones floated overhead, scanning everyone who approached. Eli took a deep breath and stepped forward. The scanner light flashed red. Unauthorized entry detected, a mechanical voice said. Identify yourself. Eli Varon, he said calmly. Engineer. Dock worker. I'm returning home from repairs. The soldier behind the scanner looked up, his visor glinting. What's that with you? He asked, pointing to Lyra. She's a child, Eli said. She needs help. Her mother's gone. The soldier frowned. She's not human. You know the rules. Aliens stay in their zone. You can't bring her through. Eli stood his ground. She's not a threat. She's hungry, tired, and alone. The soldier's voice turned hard. Orders are orders. Turn around before you both get arrested. People in line began to whisper. Some stared. A few pulled their children closer. Others just looked away. No one spoke up for him. Lyra clung to his coat, fear spreading in her eyes. They don't want me, she whispered. Eli looked down at her, then back at the guard. You see her? He said quietly. She searched trash to make her sick mother smile. She deserves better than this. The soldier hesitated but didn't move. It's not my choice, he said. Go. Eli's jaw tightened. He lifted Lyra in his arms and stepped back from the gate. The guards raised their weapons slightly, warning him not to try. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Eli turned away, carrying her toward the outer edge of the city. They walked until the walls faded behind them. The streets became dirt paths, and the lights of the city turned small and distant. Lyra looked up at him. "Are we going somewhere safe?" He nodded. "Yes. Somewhere no one can tell us we don't belong." The wind carried the sound of the distant sirens. Eli didn't look back. He knew once they crossed the outer limits, they'd be marked as missing. But freedom was worth more than safety now. By sunset, they reached the hills outside the city. The land was quiet, wild, untouched, small ruins scattered across the plain. Eli set his bag down and built a small fire from old wood and wires. Lyra sat close, warming her hands. "Does the world end here?" she asked softly. "No," Eli said. "It starts again." She smiled faintly. "Mom would have liked it here." Eli looked at her and saw how strong she had become despite everything. The sadness in her eyes was still there, but behind it was something brighter. Hope. He took out a small piece of metal from his pocket. It was one of his repair tools, bent and useless. He handed it to her. "You can make your next flower from this. Something new for a new place." Lyra turned the metal in her hands, studying it under the firelight. "It's not shiny yet," she said. "It will be," Eli replied. "You just have to clean it like you did before. Things only shine when someone cares enough to make them shine." She smiled again, a real smile this time, the kind he hadn't seen since that night in the alley. As the stars appeared above the hills, Eli looked toward the distant city lights fading behind the horizon. The world had rejected them, but in that quiet place under the open sky, he realized they had found something stronger than acceptance. They had found each other. The hills were quiet and wide, the air clean and cool. The sky stretched endlessly above them, painted with soft colors of dawn. Eli had never seen a morning like this since the war ended. No sirens, no smoke, just the whisper of wind through dry grass. Lyra stood beside him, holding the glass flower in her hands. Its surface caught the early light, glowing faintly like a tiny star. They had built a small shelter using broken panels and old metal sheets. It wasn't much, but it was theirs. Every day Eli worked to make it better, fixing leaks, setting up a small fire pit, collecting water from the hills. Lyra helped, learning quickly, laughing when the fire smoked too much or when the wind knocked down their makeshift roof. For the first time in a long while, laughter didn't feel strange to him. One evening, while the sun dipped low, Eli found her sitting near the fire, carving something from scrap metal. She looked up and smiled. "I'm making another flower," she said proudly. "But this one's not from trash. It's from the things you fixed." Eli sat beside her, watching her small fingers shape the petals carefully. "You've got skill," he said. "Maybe better than mine," she giggled. "No one's better than you. You build everything." He looked into the distance where the city lights shimmered faintly. "Not everything, Lyra. Some things can't be built again. You just have to start new." She tilted her head, thinking. "Like us?" He smiled. "Exactly like us. Days turned into weeks." The land slowly began to heal from the acid rains. Grass pushed through the dirt. Small flowers bloomed near the rocks. Lyra started a small garden using seeds she found in an old crate. She said it was for her mother, that flowers would help the world remember her smile. At night, they sat by the fire and looked at the stars. Lyra always tried to name them, but there were too many. "Maybe Mom is one of them," she said once. "Maybe she's watching." Eli didn't answer right away. He looked at the sky, then at her. "If she is, I think she's proud of you." Lyra smiled softly and leaned against his shoulder. "Then she's proud of you too." Time moved differently out there. The noise of the city was gone, replaced by the sound of wind and distant birds. Eli taught Lyra how to repair things, how to build small machines from scraps. In return, she taught him how to see beauty in simple things. The sound of water, the warmth of sunlight, the glow of their little fire. One morning she came running to him, her eyes bright. "Eli, come see." He followed her to the garden. In the middle, among the green shoots, stood a new flower, one made of metal and glass shining under the sun. Lyra had built it perfectly, its petals catching light in shades of gold and silver. "It's for you," she said. "You gave me a home. You gave me a new life. So this one's yours." Eli stared at it, words stuck in his throat. He knelt and touched the flower gently. "It's beautiful," he said. "You made it from hope." She nodded. "That's what Mom said to make things from." He smiled, though his eyes felt heavy. Then she'd be proud. You've made something real. Lyra stood beside him, holding the old glass flower from the alley in one hand and the new one in the other. One for the past, she said softly, and one for the future. Eli helped her place both flowers near a small stone they had marked for her mother. Together, they stood in silence as the wind moved through the hills. The light touched the two flowers, making them glow side by side, one cracked and old, one bright and new. Eli looked at Lyra and saw how far she had come, not just from the ruins of the city, but from fear and loss. She was stronger now, her spirit unbroken. And as the sun climbed higher, the light spread across the land, washing away the shadows of the past. For the first time, Eli felt something he hadn't known for years. Peace. He looked down at her and said quietly, "Let's build something bigger next." Lyra smiled wide. "Together? Always," he said. And with that, the man and the little alien girl walked back toward their small shelter, two survivors carrying the light of a promise that had changed them both. Forever.